Okay, hello guys, it's Microt here. In this short video I'll present several things which every single PvP player should know in order to be competitive in Guild Wars 2 structured PvP. Alright, so I'd like to begin with a few simple points. First of all, you should know the maps. If you want to play Guild Wars 2 in the tournament mode, in solo queue, it's absolutely vital for you to know those 6 maps on which you are going to fight. You should know every single intricacy of them. You should know which escape paths you can take, which places you shouldn't go to, and where you shouldn't jump. Okay, because this makes the whole thing much easier to cope with. Alright, so the second thing you should know is the class you're playing. This is a kind of complex thing, actually. So, every single class in Guild Wars 2 has its specific mechanics, its specific traits and specific skills. Moreover, you have certain weapon choices and, well, generally speaking, there are so many things that you can do with every of those 8 classes available that it really takes some time to grasp it. So I'll just give you an outline of things you should know before you actually get to fight enemy players. First of all, you should know what your character is capable of. Even if you took your build from somewhere else, you didn't design it yourself, you still must know what to do and how to use those traits properly. Because it's not just a set of passives which trigger randomly, but this all creates some coherent whole. For instance, I am using a skill which makes my wells give me protection. So as long as I stand inside of those wells and I place them, you see protections pops up. I also use a skill which creates a mark of blood every time I dodge. This one also has a 10-second cooldown. Anyway, it's very important to know these things. Every class has those unique set of traits which apply under certain conditions. And it's really good if you're able to control when you use those traits and how you use them. Secondly, you should remember about choosing utility skills. Every character should have at least one stun breaker. Because, well, especially if you're playing a very squishy character, like a Necro for instance, I'm using a kind of a tanky build. But anyway, having a stun breaker is a must here. So, I have this one, Spectral Walk, which breaks stun and allows me to shift between 2 points. So I can use this one, I can move, I can get back. Okay, so this one actually is a very broad skill. It has many uses. It's also a swiftness, and every character in the game, every class has a wide array of those skills available to the player. Okay, you can see that. So it's really important for you to choose them carefully, because the utility skills are also dependent on your general trait build. For instance, I am using a trait which reduces the recharge on my well skills. You can see it here. It's 20% of cooldown which goes away. Since the usual game in Guild Wars in a tournament lasts about 10 minutes, this means that I'm going to be able to use these skills, every single well skill, 20% more often. And this actually means that I am much more flexible. So you should remember that when you choose the traits, you should choose particular utility skills as well, which actually fit to your build, because this increases your efficiency, or it may drastically decrease it. Okay? So every time you choose utility skill, you should also take into consideration its cast time, because some of them have channeling. You can see it in the right top corner of this window to the left, and then there's a cooldown. This is this 25 number. Okay? So as long as you take this into consideration, you should have a very coherent build which works very well. Another very important thing is knowing other classes. You can't go with knowing just your own one, because it's not only knowing what your opponents can do and anticipating their moves, but it's also about cooperation with your teammates. This is a team game. sPvP actually is a 5-on-5 game, so if you don't know what to expect from your allies, what they can do, and what buffs or debuffs they can apply, you're going to be much less efficient. If you, for instance, are aware of how much CC a Hammer Warrior has, you can chain your fears along with his stuns. This will actually create a pretty much endless CC chain for you. It's also particularly useful in the duels, because you will face a 1v1 situation sooner or later, and if you know what your opponent can do, what they can dish off against you, this means that you will be ahead. You will be able to anticipate their movements, you will be able to interrupt their skills when the time is right, and you will be able to finally beat them, if you play perfectly, of course. You also need to know what your character can do in combat. So before you get to fight others, you should actually test your skills and see how they interact with each other. You should also browse the internet, because the descriptions of the skills do not always tell you everything. So you can check it on the Guild Wars 2 Wiki and such. So for instance, a thief can use a very efficient combo. You can channel 5 and 2 if you're using a dagger pistol build. This will give you a stealth. There are so many tricks for every single class that before you actually play the game, you can learn really much. For instance, I didn't know how to use a backstab on my thief when I started playing it. I had no idea that first of all, you had to go stealth, and then you had to place yourself behind your target to deal double damage. So there are, actually now it is described in the skill, but previously it wasn't. So there are very many intricacies to every single class in Guild Wars 2, and in order to be proficient, you should know them all. The last general tip about the theory I would like to give you is that you should know the meta of the game. Even if you're using some hipster build, even if you created your build yourself, even if you crafted it, and it works really well, it doesn't matter, because most of the other players are actually using the guides from the internet, and they won't care. They use those preset builds, which are proven to be very useful and very efficient, and if you actually want to stand a chance to counter them, you should at least know what your opponents and your allies are very likely to have.